There's always a finger pointed at violent video games when the act of violence occurs, such as bullying or a mass shooting. From the gruesome fighting techniques of Mortal Kombat to the city destruction of Grand Theft Auto, it may be the easiest solution for our government to put blame on these games and its influences. But are they really the cause of violent behavior that we see so much on social media platforms and news outlets? And should we let our government take influence on the production and distribution of these games? As much controversy as they may receive, we should not let Congress restrict violent video games. My name is Avilez, and today we're going to be talking about why Congress should not restrict violent video games. The main points we're going to be discussing are 1. Correlation between violent games and violent crime statistics. 2. Do violent video games cause violent behavior? And 3. Video games and our First Amendment rights. Number of Americans playing video games. According to Procon.org, around 73% of American kids ages 2 to 17 are playing video games, and 4 out of 5 households in America have at least one device to play video games. And if we look at the video game sales over the years, at 1990, the peak at 1990 barely even hit over 100 million units sold, but at our highest peak in 2008, we reached over 678 million units sold. Now, we see these statistics of video game sales correlate with violent crime statistics given to us by the FBI. Our highest peak at 1991, we had 758 violent crimes committed per 100,000 people, and we saw almost a 50% decrease in 2020 at 358 violent crimes being committed per 100,000 people. So as we can see, there's no correlation, but let's ask the question, do violent video games cause violent behavior? American Psychological Association's policy update said a task force in 2015 to answer the question, do violent video games cause violent behavior, and its relation to the mass shootings that are occurring at the time. The task force saw small, reliable evidence that suggested violent video games do cause aggression, such as yelling and pushing, but the APA stated there was small, unreliable evidence that suggests violent video games cause violent behavior. And there was another study that was an experiment that took 90 people who volunteered who had no association with video game usage within the past 6 months, and they were split into 3 groups. One group played a violent video game, one played a non-violent video game, and one didn't even play at all. The first group played Grand Theft Auto 5, and since there was dropouts during the experiment, there was 25 participants, 14 female, 11 male, with a mean age of 26, who were asked to play the video game 30 minutes minimum daily and 2 hours maximum daily. And our second group played The Sims 3. There was 24 participants, 12 female, 12 male, with a mean age of 25. Again, as first group, they were asked to play a minimum of 30 minutes daily and a maximum of 2 hours daily. Then we have our third group, who didn't play video games at all. There was 28 participants, 12 female, 16 male, with a mean age of 30. They didn't know they were part of the control group to prevent self-training attempts. Our testing results, the study used comprehensive tests and behavioral computerized tests to test aggression, compulsivity, mood, anxiety, interpersonal competencies, and executive control functions. Those who played violent video games tested against those who played non-violent and those who didn't even play video games whatsoever. And there was found no negative effects with violent video games and violent behavior. In the 208 tests that were performed, only 3 tests showed significant impact on the hypothesis that violent video games do cause violent behavior. So we can see through testing and studies and correlation, violent video games have no direct correlation with violent behavior. Well, let's see why Congress cannot restrict violent video games according to our First Amendment rights. So, case of Brown versus Entertainment Merchants Association, California wanted to restrict the sale and rental of violent video games to minors and have their packaging labeled 18+. The act covers the games that allow the player to choose to kill, dismember, or maim a depiction of a human being that a reasonable person would consider as a whole of the game to be deviant or morbid in the interest of a minor. The Supreme Court ruling ruled that these video games fall under the First Amendment right under our freedom of speech because it was considered an art or literacy, and unless there is any solid proof that these video games depict or compel the government interest and is narrowly drawn to serve that interest, there can be no influence with the government whatsoever. So let's go over our review. First thing we talk about, there is no correlation between video game sales and violent crime rates. 2, no significant evidence that suggests violent video games cause violent behavior. And 3, Congress cannot have any influence on video games whatsoever because video games fall under our First Amendment rights. I'd like to leave you all with something. Under our Constitution, aesthetic and moral judgment about art and literature are for the individual to make, not for the government to decree, even with the mandate or the approval of the majority. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.